Hello guys, how are we? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast Tits, Tea and Trauma with me, Neve. So at the start of my episodes, I usually tell you all about my hyperfixation of the week, except my hyperfixation of this week is going to be the topic of this whole video, and that is women and women's rights and misogyny and the stuff that I've been seeing on reality TV shows at the minute and the behaviour of certain men and the way it's just pissing me off. I've also just finished listening to Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy episode with Kamala Harris, so we're going to be talking a little bit about that because that was really insightful. But yeah, let's just get into today's episode. How are we? How are we doing? You might notice I'm in a little bit of a different location, and that is because I have left Manchester. If you've listened to my other episodes, you will know that I'm going travelling at the end of this month. So I've left my tenancy in Manchester and I'm living with my dad for a couple of weeks, just because I'm not paying 600 odd quid because I gotta save my pennies because I'm going to the other side of the world, but that's exciting. But yeah, that's not what this episode's about. I'm gonna be making content, so time for a plug, I suppose. Follow me on Instagram at Tits Tea Trauma podcast, follow me on Instagram at Tits Tea Trauma with 2 A's, and on TikTok at Tits Tea Trauma podcast. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, you can also watch the videos on YouTube. My YouTube is just my name, it's Neve Rourke, no space. And if you watch it on YouTube, please remember to subscribe, because apparently 70% of you watching my podcast are not subscribed, and it feels kind of personal. So yeah. Anyways, I'm a little bit nervous, I think, to speak about what I'm going to speak about on this podcast, purely because the only sort of, negative comments I get are from, homophobic men. And I know that it's homophobic men because it's literally pretty much always only on the videos where I talk about gay stuff. And I know just that the incels are probably going to come for me because I made a similar video like this, a few years ago called Why Women Don't Owe Men Anything. And yeah. For some reason, YouTube tends to, unless it's just, for some reason YouTube tends to push my content to fucking incels. So if you're one of them, why are you taking your time to fucking listen to me, you weirdo? And thanks for leaving the comments because it pushes my videos further. So you're actually supporting women. Thank you. Love you. But yeah, for some reason this week I've just been really, really thinking about misogyny and women's rights, and it is something that I sort of have mental conversations with myself about often, and with my male friends and also my female friends. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if this is everyone or everyone's friendship circle, but for me, it is just so prevalent in my life, and I'm sick of it, and I'm sick of being one of the only people that notices it, or I don't even know how to explain. And there's a couple of reasons why I think it's been sort of in the forefront of my mind. First of all was a conversation that I had with boyfriend, which just made me realise that when it really, really comes down to it, I am with a man, and that no matter how nice and understanding, and because this is the thing about me, this is something that I've decided of recent years, is that I do not, man or woman, want to be with someone who I have to teach basic human morals and values. That is just, I'm not doing it. I'm not there to lecture you. If you want to be a bigot, you can go be a bigot on your own. I'm not trying to I'm not attracted to you if you are a misogynist or whatever. It just makes me ill, which you'd hope it would for most people. But anyways, so obviously the person that I'm sort of seeing now, if you've watched previous episodes, you'll sort of know a little bit about him, but he is a boy, and he is the nicest boy ever, and I know that I could bring up such conversations of these and it wouldn't turn into a raging argument, I'd hope anyway, because I think that his morals are in the right place, you know? However, there was a conversation we had the other day that made me realise, fundamentally, when we strip everything down, unfortunately, you are a man, and because of misogyny in society and things like that, there are going to be certain ways that, this isn't with every man, but basically the conversation was, we started off talking about the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case. I'm not going to get into that because I got to do more research on that, but basically we had a little bit of a disagreement, I'd say, about our opinions of Amber Heard, But anyways, like I said, I'm not going to get into that because, like, I'm not fully educated on it. However, I do believe that in a lot of situations where women are in the media, they end up with smear campaigns to make people not take them as seriously, to make people think they're crazy, to make people think that they're manipulative and the bad guy and, like, manic, crazy, over-dramatic, over-emotional woman. And so that started a conversation with him. And then we started talking about, like, separating the art from the artist. And I fundamentally think, like, what is that about? Like, if, like, for example, say you really liked one of Johnny Depp's films, like, I'm either gonna watch it pirate so he doesn't get any money from it, or, like, whatever who the abuser is in that movie, or, like, I'm just not gonna engage with it at all. I'm not gonna engage with any of his media because, unfortunately, like, you are enabling that person to still have a voice, to still have a career, and to think that what they did is okay. And yeah, so that conversation sort of made me realise that men be menning sometimes, and like, I just can't even describe how fundamentally ingrained in society misogyny is. Like, even as a woman, there are things that I will do and think and say that are the product of misogyny. But I feel like I'm starting to ramble a bit now, so let's sort of get to other points where I just sort of thought, what the fuck? Like, we have not really moved on as a society at all. So it started off on maths. I mentioned maths in a previous episode as well. Married at First Sight, if you don't know what it is, long story short, it's a reality TV show where two people get married without ever seeing each other, and a lot of the relationships on this show, like 90% of the relationships on the show, are heteronormative relationships. And there was multiple men on that show, and there always is, that make me think, what the fuck goes on in your head? But there was one particular man there who, his behaviour with his wife was just, like, such a huge red flag, and I just felt like hitting my head against the wall and, like, belling up this girl myself to be like, girl, you are not in the wrong, run away from this man. Like, he is blatantly, like, using abuse tactics already. So, like, what it was just the way, like, she would say one thing, like, and then he would completely turn it on her and be like, oh my god, how dare you? Why would you say that? And then whenever she reacts to his attitude, he's like, whoa, why are you shouting at me? Why are you doing this? And it's just like an endless cycle of causing something and then flipping it back on the other person and telling them that they're emotional, they're overdramatic, they're this, they're that. And I was just sat there watching, like, oh my god, what in the fucking bull race is this? Because there are so many red flags, and I can't believe that this is, like, this behaviour is on TV, and, like, are other people seeing this and like, calling it out? Because obviously I felt bad for the wife, because I feel like when you're in it, it isn't as obvious, or, like, what it is, because I was even gaslighting myself. I was even, like, he was sat there on camera going, like, how dare you speak to me like that? How dare you do this? And she's just, like, always crazy and always... And I was there thinking, like, trying to empathise with him, being like, I wonder what she did. So imagine being the woman in the situation, especially when it's about yourself. You're obviously going to be sat there thinking, like, maybe he's right, especially when, as a woman, you are constantly told and brought up in a society which favours men. Anyways, so I was scrolling on my little ticky-tocky, and lo and behold, that guy on there has had accusations of abuse from previous relationships. So I was like, oh, see, Neve, you're not crazy. Like, you're just made to fucking feel like this because they just make us feel and make women look crazy, and we're just such an easy fucking scapegoat. It's insane. And then another thing is Big fucking Brother. Now, this was going to be my fixation of the week, because I love Big Brother. It's so... I can't believe it's back. I'm so happy that it's back. But there's just one... In fact, there's not just one person on there. There's one particular person on there that, like, red flagged my eyes wide open. But it's just so interesting to see this guy's behaviour play out so blatantly in front of me on camera, and all the things that, like, we see in person every day as women. I'm sure if you're a woman listening to this, or a girl listening to this, you'll completely agree. Like, there's little behaviours in men, whether that's in the club, whether that's in our friendship groups, whether that's in a workplace, where you're just like, that fell off, but you can't say anything because you're afraid of like getting brushed off or whatever, or because you want to give people grace because maybe you only see one thing, and it's not unless you're like close to this person or with them a lot that you start to see one thing after another after another after another, until sometimes it is too late. But to see this live on TV, okay, and the person I'm talking about is Marcello. So first of all, let's analyze this. You go in and his VT is all talking about women, and he's like looking at his, I remember he lifted his ab thing up, like, as he was, like, walking in to look at himself. And I thought, you know what? Bit weird, bit of a, this is what I mean, bit of a red flag. And then hearing the VT, him talking about women, you're like, okay, bit of a red flag. But we're taught as girls, boys will be boys and all this stuff. No, someone should check him right there and then. That should be embarrassing. Are you not embarrassed for your boy? Like, if you're friends with him, are you not embarrassed that that's how, as your son, does, like, if that was my son or my, like, male relative, I would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you speaking about women like that? But anyways, it's kind of like, he's not necessarily saying anything too harmful that I remember anyway. I just remember thinking, bit of a red flag, okay? But now it's got to the point where literally there has not been a single episode where he hasn't mentioned women, where he hasn't like tried to flirt with one of the other girls, with one of the openly queer women. He and Ali were in the smokers area, which isn't like technically meant to be filmed. There's a security camera there and obviously their mics on, and Big Brother ended up having to show that interaction because he basically swapped vapes with her and then came out and was like, oh, we just kissed, and like, which I get some people were saying, no, it's a minor, she overreacted, but this is the problem. This is the problem. It's not an overreaction. It's weird behaviour, okay? It's fundamentally, categorically weird behaviour, and her gut is telling her that she feels uncomfortable, and this is the catalyst, this is the start of him trying to push and push and push his boundaries. Obviously, boundaries may not get pushed because thankfully they are on a show where there are producers and it's getting recorded 24/7. But it's shit like this that gets passed up in real life, and then that person will then continue to push a woman's boundaries. But again, if we stand up for ourselves in the first instance, oh, brush off, we're dramatic, we're this, we're trying to cause a problem. I can't tell you how many times in my life, like, that has happened. And to me, by my own friendship groups, by my own male friends, especially at the ages of like 17, 18, where you didn't have the hindsight of how realistically dangerous men can be. And obviously it's not just men, everyone can be dangerous, but unfortunately we live in a society that has allowed men to feel like this, and has allowed men to maybe, I don't know, feel the need to be in control, and that control comes from, you know, harming women. I'm gonna throw a little trigger warning in here now, because I feel like I may end up in this podcast talking about kind of darker, triggering subjects, and I'll do my best to like not give details or skirt around it, but I am essentially talking about male violence and sexual violence, like, to women being sort of the end goal, or the end, like, I don't know how to explain it, but the end goal for men in these sorts of situations. So I do want to like tread carefully, but also like basically say if this is something that you find hard to listen to, then just like proceed with caution, sort of thing. But yeah, so, and then on all his like diary things, he's talking about how much he loves women, how he can never pick just one woman to be with because he just loves them all so much, and basically just loves fucking them the rest of his life. He's gonna be a fucking Adonis, shagging 20 different women at once, which is fucking fine, okay? I do not give a fuck about someone's sex life as long as it is like consent on both sides and like healthy, like disease wise and things like that. I do not give a fuck, okay? What bothers me is the way that he talks like this, as if it's like an honour for us as women, as if like he thinks that we're a goddess, like as if he like looks up to us. But then when they're all doing this podium game, when Ali says she's a feminist, he scoffs and looks at her in disgust and so you don't value women in a positive way. You value women and like to have sex with them because you like to have sex with them. It's to feed you and your ego, okay? Because that's why you can't respect the rest of the women in the house. And apparently, it's just, I don't know. Do you know what? Again, I'm such an empathetic like little bitch, because again, last night on Big Brother, so there's this girl called Rosie / Baked Potato. If you're watching, you'll know the law. But he's like kind of openly flirting with her, and he's like, someone asked like, oh, who would you lips like, let me go back to that in a sec. He's like, someone asked like, oh, who would you lips in here, and like before, like he's just like, Rosie. And then like she's like, okay, like she doesn't seem bothered by it, to be honest, but then he does go like, sorry for making you feel uncomfortable. And in that moment I was like, oh, maybe he's not that bad. No, he is. This is what they do to cover their backs. This is what they do in front of other people. Like, he is all so calculated, because if you were really that sorry, you would stop going on about it. You would stop going on about how bad you want to lips her. Bear in mind, Ali, so the same woman that he was in smoking area with, she's a lesbian, and before he even met her, before he'd even spoke to her, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna lips her. Fuck off! No, you're not. Shut up and fuck off. Like, and again, people might think like we've come so far in a society for women's rights and stuff, which is true, we have. And I come from a very, very privileged position. Like, I'm a white, I'd say, middle class woman from England. There's a lot worse situations I could be in as a woman, and I appreciate the work that has been done by women before me, but that doesn't mean to say that I have not clocked like things since I was a kid that are fucking rooted in misogyny. One of my earliest fucking memories that I literally think about a lot, and I think again just shows like how language is used differently towards women to bring them down and to lessen them and to quiet. And that's another thing that Kamala was talking about in her podcast with Alex Cooper, is that someone told her that because she's never had kids, she'll never understand humbleness, and nobody was ever there to keep her humble. And she says, well, not all women are trying to be humble. Like, why do you think that all women have to be this quiet, housewifey, humble archetype? Why can't we be proud? Why can't we be loud? Why can't we speak our minds and have energy? Why can't we be emotional? Why can't we be dramatic? Why is that all bad things? Why are we expected to be humble? To sit down and shut up? Like, what? Because that's never worked for me, babe. And it never will. And if you're the same, you shouldn't fucking let it. And even if you are a quiet person, that you still have every right to a voice, and you still have every right to speak your mind and when you feel like it. And it shouldn't be dictated by men, or it shouldn't be dictated by the fact that people will call you too much, or call you too loud, or too overdramatic. Or so I have one of my first memories in primary school. We were out in this like special like garden thing, and we were doing some sort of planting project, and I was in a group with one of the boys, and I was like trying to tell us what to do. I was trying to I think I was like the leader of the group, so I was trying to, lead, and he just turned around and was like, you're really bossy, and like wouldn't listen to me. And for some reason, that sounds so minor, but I was probably about 7, 8, and that is stuck in my head, and it's sometimes I would say it has impacted the way that I do things, because you're sat there thinking, oh, am I overstepping the mark? Am I being too bossy? But if it was a man in that position, would they get called bossy? When have I ever heard a man be called bossy? Riddle me that, because I genuinely have never heard it. Like, another thing where this happened is I used to be quite vocal on, I suppose nothing's changed, but on my social media about feminism, like when I was like 14 or something. It was around the time that Emma Watson was like doing a lot of stuff for feminism, and I think I posted a post of her, and I remember this boy that I had the hugest crush on, and my friends told me that he said to her that, he would like me, but I'm just a little bit too vocal about feminism. I'm just a little bit, like, he was like, I don't get why she talks about it so much, like no one cares. When, by the way, I'd never ever had a conversation about this to this boy. So on the one hand, I was kind of like defensive. I was kind of like, fuck him, I'm going to talk about him more. You just sort of proved my point, that me posting one social media post about something, why does it affect you? Did you feel attacked because you've realised deep down that you're showing signs of misogyny? Like, why did that make you so uncomfortable if it wasn't personal? Riddle me that. But then one part of you is like, especially, or conditioned to want validation from people and from men specifically. It did make me sit back and think, oh, maybe I shouldn't post as much, maybe I shouldn't speak out as much, because do other people think like this, regardless of their gender? Do other people think that I am too passionate and that I am too much? And I'm ashamed to admit that it from that point I kind of was a little bit less vocal about things. And again, we saw it again in Big Brother when someone was asked if they were a feminist. Like, majority of the boys pulled a face. Why? Feminism, and Ali said it perfectly. She said that anyone, like, she thinks that being a feminist is non-negotiable because it means that you believe that men and women should be equal. And if you think that it means that women should be more important than men, then that's not feminism and you've been taught wrong. And that's what I've been saying for years, because fundamentally that is feminism. That men and women should be equal and should be treated equally and should be seen as equal. What is women are better than men or being man-haters? That's misandry. That's completely different. But again, people have created smear campaigns just like they do with everything fucking else, to make feminists seem like this crazy man-hating revolution, when you cut it down to what it is, it's not. And I was shocked at the amount of boys on the show and in real life that rolled their eyes at it, because you clearly just don't have an ounce of critical thinking about you, and you just take what all the media and like right-wing media and anti-woke media say and just like run with it. It's like, has anyone told you that you can actually like think beyond what you read online, and you can actually, because if you did, you would realise that feminism is needed and it's just about having equal fucking rights. And these people all came from a woman. Like, it baffles me. As a mother, I would be so upset if my son was stood there rolling his eyes about feminism, about women's rights, was sat there gloating about all the women he's shagged and making women feel uncomfortable because he fancies them and wants to kiss them, and I just don't have words. And you may be sat there thinking, like, this all seems a little bit dramatic, like these are just comments and stuff. That's where it starts. I saw this pyramid on, I think, Twitter, and it was like, the pyramid started with like misogynistic jokes or like sex jokes, things like that, and it got up worse and worse and worse, and it's like had this people's reactions at the side of like, boys will be boys, all this stuff, like blah blah blah, and it go up and up and up until sexual assault and rape, and then until femicide. And it isn't until the femicide that the quotes on the other sides, people are like, oh, like, wish we'd done something. This is why it's so important, as men especially, to be fair, I had a look at my analytics and there's quite a lot of boys that listen to me, which is, thank you, unexpected, because I'm a yapper. And I mean, I yap about shit like this, and I just feel like maybe you wouldn't care. But if you are a boy listening to this, fucking hold your friends accountable for their fucking shitty jokes and pick up on things. Because I've had like in my like late teen adult life, I've had 2 major friendships. And in both of those major friendships, we have had one person turn out to be a sexual assaulter, one male turn out to be a sexual assaulter. Which is fucking insane, like. And I've also had a lot more friends than that, female friends, who have been assaulted to like the highest degree, which I'm not going to talk about because it's not my shit to talk about, but I just want to say 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted in their life. I don't remember that. I've just been listening to the podcast with Kamala Harris on Call Her Daddy, and that was the statistic. I don't know if that was just in America or what, but I know that I think it's the same in the UK, that 1 in 3 women experience sexual assault. 1 in 3 fucking women. So and when that happens to like your own friends, excuse me for being fucking on edge and ready to call people out for their shitty behaviour and for their shitty jokes and for the way that they speak or treat women, because I can't tell you, like, especially as men, how important that is. Because like I said, I had a close friend turn out to assault someone in our friendship group, and the fucking timeline of events that led to that final assault, there could have been so many times where he was called out. It's like, should I even speak about this? But why the fuck shouldn't I? Like, basically, so I was in college and we had like a mixed gendered friendship group, and one of them I would say like relatively close to. Like, I think we joked that we were sort of like, he was like, no, I was gonna say we joked like he was like daddy. Like, we were just really, yeah, you heard that right. But not in a sexual way from me. Like, we were just close and we got along really well and stuff like that. But there was just things that I personally started to notice, like just the way, first of all, the way he treated his ex-girlfriend, the way he treated his girlfriend at the time. He was cheating on her. So again, huge red flag. I wasn't close enough to say anything at that time. But this is why, like surely as friends, like, you should call out when people, both genders, are like cheating, because it's showing some sort of, for me anyway, for this situation, it was clearly showing some sort of lack of respect, some sort of lack of self-control when it came to the way he treated girls already. And then, but it's fine because his persona, like when you chat to him, is so blasé. It's so like, whoa, whatever, you know? That's how they get away with it, by being so nice. This is why it really, anyways, so let's carry on. So that clocked that, wasn't a fan of that, but like, it's not, we weren't that close. I wasn't close with the girl, I didn't know her. I wasn't as close with the ex, and it just didn't feel like my place to say anything. And then I also noticed that he was a little bit weird with us as his female friends, like a little bit too touchy. Like, we all had boyfriends in the group and he would like touch our legs and things like that. And one of my friends was 2 years younger than us. She was 15 at the time, and I remember having a house party and sitting next to them and seeing his hand on her leg and just thinking, I don't know, because again, like, you're intoxicated and stuff, like, you're all really touchy. So when we tell the boys, they'd sort of put it down to that. Anyways, later on that very same night, this boy took me and my friend into a room and made me sit on his knee, which instantly made me feel uncomfortable because, one, I just didn't want to my boyfriend and his boyfriend in the other room. But again, you feel like, or I felt like as a girl, he's a bit fucked. He was going on about something like personal to him that wasn't very nice, and he said he wanted me to sit on him to comfort him, and I was like, oh no, like, I don't really. Anyways, like, he's a lot bigger than me, like, he sat me down on his knee and I was just like, yeah, whatever. And I'm on this boy's knee and I'm like trying to end the conversation, trying to get away. Like, I'm not even, I just like, it made me feel so uncomfortable. And then he basically, I think he asked to kiss me or something, or he tried to kiss me and I was like, no. Why the fuck would I do that? And I said, like, I, again, pushed him off in a jokey way because I felt uncomfortable. Like, was like, oh, like, are my boyfriends and girlfriends in the other room? Like, no, I do not want to kiss you. But I just fundamentally didn't want to kiss him because he was disgusting in the first place. Like, even if my boyfriend wasn't asked about it, I did not want to kiss this boy, and I made that very, very, very fucking clear so that no one can ever say you didn't say no, because that's bullshit anyway. But anyways, he then grabbed me and forced me to kiss him. Great. So then obviously I felt shit about that because, one, I've essentially cheated on my boyfriend, and two, that was against my will. I completely didn't want it to happen and it was completely by force and it was disgusting. But then there's one part of you that's like, oh, like, it isn't that bad. Like, there's much worse things that he could have done. However, I still went, and I had friends that had been through worse, but I still went and, like, said it to my, I think, probably friends, but I took my boyfriend into, like, a private space, and I was like, look, he's just done this, I'm really sorry, but I really didn't want it to happen. What do you want to sort of, like... And again, I feel like this happens a lot. I was in the position in this friendship group where I didn't feel as valued. I'd been put down a lot as someone, because of my mental health, that was, like, a lot more dramatic and stuff, and I felt like I very much walked on eggshells, and I was very much, like, at the mercy of, you know, my boyfriend's opinion of me, and essentially my boyfriend's friends, because, like... Even though we were all one big group, there were certain people who maybe had more influence. Like, look, it was college. So, and also when it's yourself, despite the fact that everyone thought I was so overdramatic and all this, I felt like I couldn't make a big deal out of how it really made me feel, and I didn't want to, I knew that if I came out against him, I thought or slash knew people would still not think it was that big of a deal and would probably side with him, and then I'd lose all my friends. I knew that's how it would go. So I put the ball in my boyfriend's court with probably the hope at the time that he would stand up for me. And I think that our relationship at that time was very unhealthy and very, like, again, I was on eggshells. That is why I put the ball in his court, because I was scared that if I kicked up a fuss, not only would I lose my friends, I would lose my boyfriend, because they were very close. Yeah, they were very close, those two boys. Anyways, told my boyfriend, he didn't really care. Nothing happened. Nothing came of it. Fast forward a few months later, like, essentially said, I'm not going downstairs until that boy gets out of my house. Like, the next day, I just didn't want to see him. I don't know, I felt really anxious, I felt really grim. I just didn't want to see him. So, I can't remember what happened between that and this next thing, but essentially we all go off to uni and it comes out that he ended up assaulting quite seriously, like, a friend in the group. And I was just like, how many steps did it take for us to get here, and how many times as girls in this group did we get put down? And it's coming from fucking, like, a lot of the boys in that group, like, I still stand by them as, like, genuinely morally good people, and I have a lot of love for them, and yet that still happened. And I'm also quite an outspoken person, and again, I spoke about how uncomfortable, obviously not enough, and if we could go back, us girls, like, we would probably change that, but, like, we can't. And it's just so crazy, isn't it, that it takes until it gets bad, until it's too late for people to take you seriously, especially as a woman. It's fucking insane. That's something that Kamala Harris and Alex Cooper were talking about in terms of, like, abortion. Like, she was, like, saying that, you know, I'm never, ever, ever going to be on the side of Republicans or the side of Trump, okay? Look at me. I'm blue. But I also hadn't done that much research into Kamala Harris. I just sort of knew she was the best of maybe not a great bunch, essentially, in American politics. Obviously, I'm not American, so, and I, like, a lot of the stuff that I do know about politics is from social media, which maybe isn't the most reliable, but in some sources maybe it is, because the media itself is not very reliable. But anyway, that's a rabbit hole. So I was really, like, I've come away from that podcast. Like, it's great propaganda, to say the least, because I've come away from the podcast with a lot of respect and a lot of hope in Kamala Harris and in what she believes in. And the whole podcast was essentially about the importance of women's rights in her campaign. And again, so they're talking about, obviously, Roe versus Wade has been overturned in majority of states in America, which means it's not illegal for women to have abortions, which is crazy. And I'm pretty sure Ireland only just a couple of years ago made it legal for women to have abortions, or did they make it real legal? Let me check. Yeah, so they held another referendum in just 2018 that meant that abortion was legal in Ireland for up to 12 weeks, which is just fucking insane! Like, what is this century we live in? Because it doesn't sound like the 21st, because you're telling women that they can't have abortions. Anyways, Kamala was saying that some people who are anti-abortion, anti-choice, will have the exception of when it becomes a risk to the mother's life, then they'll say, okay, an abortion is fine. And she was like, do you know how inhumane that is, to say that the only way you will let a woman access healthcare is if they are at the brink of death? Like, that is crazy. And it's the same sentiment with fucking everything in life, I feel like. No one ever takes it seriously until it is too late. No one ever takes the friend, the man who acts a bit fucking weird sometimes, seriously until he genuinely causes hurt and trauma to someone. When are we going to wake up? When are we going to speak? And that's why I'm doing a podcast about it, because I'm sick of having these internal dialogues, and I'm sick of talking amongst the girlies, and I'm sick of talking amongst the boys that... In fact, no, because some of the boys in my life that I expected to not need to listen still need to fucking listen. So listen the fuck up, and wise the fuck up, and start having these fucking conversations, because it doesn't, like, it's happening. But the thing is, because of feminism and all this stuff being... And because everyone thinks we're such a woke generation and stuff, it's happening covertly. It's happening in little jokes. It's happening in people on, like, Marcello being on TV. It's happening... I watched Kevin Lang on YouTube, and again, something I just was like, if I was in that room, I would actually go crazy. So Kevin Lang, if you don't know him, he's a YouTuber and he does like panel shows, like sort of like Beta Squad and Sidemen, but like an American version. Like he'll be like, this one was like guess the GPA, or so guess the grade point average, and it was a panel of 5 guys, and one of the guys just was so inherently sexist, and I consume Kevin Lang, his media a lot, and I really genuinely like this panel and these men that he usually does his panel with, like Denny and like Aaron, is it? I don't know. Bald guy. Their names are in my head, but they're just not coming to me. I genuinely really, really like them as creators, and I think they're funny, and as men, they are, you know, they seem like nice people, but something just like, basically, they were doing like a fake debate between a girl and one of these guys on the panel, and the debate was, she was meant to say she was against people driving at the age of 14 and he was for driving at the age of 14. Again, nothing about gender. And this guy goes, well, I think that like boys should be able to drive at the age of 14 so they can go to the mall and go pick up girls and stuff like that, but there's no way I'm letting like a 14-year-old girl drive. Like, I have a stepdaughter and I never let her drive at 14 because like, where is she going? And I was just like, do you not fucking hear yourself? So you're not letting your 14-year-old daughter, or like you're not letting 14-year-old women drive because he said they're bad drivers and he doesn't, like, where is she going? But then you as a boy expect to be allowed to drive so you can go pick up girls. What? First of all, that's problematic, because how old are these girls that you're picking up? Because, I mean, are they under 14 because they can't drive? Second of all, so you as a man are allowed to do what you want with these girls, but your girl, your daughter, the women, the young girls in your life do not have that don't have their own autonomy to do that themselves. And I was just like sat there like, this is a room full of people, primarily men, and not one person is calling them out. And thankfully I went to the comments and all of the comments were like calling him out, and I was like, thank God. Also, another thing that's made me think this is the whole young Philly situation. Again, I was talking to the person that I'm seeing about this, like because again, like I just said, I consume people like the Sidemen and Beta Squad's media. Obviously, Young Philly, it's all alleged, but I can't comment on that because I don't know anything about them. But Young Philly is a lot of the time part of their content, and what he's been charged with and what the allegations are actually horrific and kind of scary, and it just makes you think, like, how many red flags were there in his relationships with, like, his friendships with the boys that they didn't pick up on. And no, that's so bad to speculate because you don't know, but to be publicly associated with someone that goes and does something so heinous is obviously allegedly goes and does something so heinous is just a bit concerning. Because surely you notice things, especially if you're in situations like you go to the club with these people. And there's a video, and it's so annoying because I love Chunks. I do. I genuinely love him. I think he's so funny. He's so talented. And he seems like a genuinely nice guy. But there's a video of him saying to Philly, like, I wouldn't let you marry my little sister. And it's like, okay, so you know something. Something doesn't sit right with you. And that's how it is with women often. We just have a gut feeling that doesn't sit right with us. But we're sort of told to doubt ourselves, so we never say it or so we never act on it, and then it turns out we were right. But I just think moral of the story is check your friends, hold people accountable, because it's just crazy. It just feels like every few weeks or something there's another fucking story about violence against women, whether that's sexual, whether that's like femicide. Anyways, I'm not gonna like have this episode be too long because I'll be honest, like, I've not like planned it in a way, like I've not like researched a lot of it. This is purely just like my inner rantings about this, and you know, I wanted to share with you some of my experiences and maybe, you know, make people start to be accountable for their friendship groups, and also like, tell especially younger women, trust your gut. And if you're seeing weird behaviours in your like 16, 17, 18, 20, whatever year old male friends, don't be afraid. Well, not don't be afraid to call them out, like keep yourself safe, but like don't be afraid to trust yourself. And it's not fucking normal for a man like Marcello to be sexualizing you all the time. It's not normal for men to have conversations with you and it only be in a sexual way. We are human fucking beings as women, and we are more than just a fucking sex doll. And if you want one so bad, go on Amazon or something and fucking buy one. They're probably really good now. It's actually such a huge thing. Like, there's so much more that I could go into about it, but like, I'm just not going to this episode. I'm just sort of dipping my toes in. I just wanted to sort of get the thoughts that have been running through my head this week out to you guys, and this is actually a very last minute recording episode, so I'm recording this on Monday and it's got to be out on Wednesday, so it's certainly very fresh and unfiltered and exactly what I've been feeling this week. I don't know if it is a little bit of a different episode to usual, but I really, really hope you liked it, and if you did, please give it a like, give it a share, give it a subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, please remember to rate the podcast. It's really, really helpful, and I just fucking love seeing everyone's like comments and rates and things. Follow the Instagram, the TikTok, and yeah, let me know if you've been watching this kind of reality shit and you've clocked it as well, because I'm kind of sick of clocking it. Like, I want it to change. I want these men to stop thinking in these fucking disgusting ways. Like, what is wrong with you? I really don't get it. As a gay woman as well, like, I know from personal experience it is possible to both be attracted to women, but not just fucking sexualize them all the time, and actually be able to be friends with them and actually be able to have conversations with them, even if they are beautiful and amazing and whatever. It's possible, and that is why it comes from a sense of power and misogyny, because if it didn't, then all the lesbians would be acting like all the straight men, fucking wouldn't they? But like I said, that is actually a whole other rabbit hole, and I've not got time to get into it because I've been speaking longer than I thought I'd speak anyway. So yeah, thank you for listening, and see you next week.